The title of Grandmaster was first officially awarded in 1950. Now, in 2017, at the St. Louis Invitational, that tradition continues. Can you beat a Grandmaster? That's the question you need to ask yourself here at the 2017 St. Louis Invitational, the GM and IM norms. So here's the skinny. In the Grandmaster norm section, there are 3 Grandmasters and 7 International Masters, the next step below. To become a Grandmaster, the IM must have a minimum rating plus 3 Grandmaster performances, or a norm as we call it. So in this tournament, any one of the IMs in this top section needs to earn 6 points to earn that GM norm. Plus, we're also playing for first, second, and third place overall. That's what the Grandmasters are playing for after all. The IM norm section is mostly the same. 3 International Masters, and then 7 players who are not titled International Master. All of those players must also net 6 points to get an IM norm, except for St. Louis and Matt Larson, who because of the difference in his rating has to earn 6.5 points. More on that as we move on. And of course, first, second, third, so on and so forth for the prizes. We must say that it is no guarantee that anybody, not even the winner of each field, will earn a norm. That is a special occurrence. But in this tournament, there is a $15,000 prize fund. The higher you score, the more money you make. The scheduling for the St. Louis Invitational is a little bit odd. 1 round on Friday, 2 rounds on Saturday, 2 rounds on Sunday, 2 rounds on Monday, 1 round on Tuesday, and the final round on a Wednesday. The reason being that the FIDE requires that this be a 6-day tournament. So to span 6 days, this is how you do it. I'm here with International Master Daniel Gurevich. He just won his game in the 4th round, and I know we only have like 20 minutes until the next round, so we'll make it as brief as possible. But what were your feelings coming in today for rounds 4 and what will be 5?
Well, that's a good question. Really, I'm just trying to get playable positions. That's my main goal going into today. Okay.
So have you played John Bartholomew before, your opponent in this particular game?
I have had already 2 games against him. One of them I was completely losing out of the opening and really lucky to survive, and somehow I won because he got into time pressure. And the other one was a pretty solid game where we played for a really long time, but it was just a draw in the end.
Okay, so you're working toward your 2nd norm here in the GM field. Let's take a look at the game and show us how you pulled this one out.
All right. I thought that rook d7 in any case was being in too much of a hurry. On one hand, he does take the rooks off, which seems to make it easier for him to draw. But I think that here he underestimated that in this line I have this bishop d6 move, which prevents him from coming knight c7 and taking my pawn. And since this knight is sort of cut off on the edge of the board, it's not really clear how he can hold on to this pawn other than what he did in the game. So for instance, if he tries king f1, still hoping for me to take on b4, then he can just take on knight d4, of course. But then I have this move e5, which looks a bit anti-positional, weakening all of these squares, but it prevents this concrete knight d4, and after I win a pawn, maybe he can get some kind of fortress, but it's definitely risky for him. So he played knight d4 here, which is what I expected, considering he was getting quite low on time here. I think he had about 15 minutes left. So I traded here, and going into this position in my earlier calculations, I was of course hoping that I could get my king over to d5 and put pressure on these weak d4 and b4 pawns. But if he can get a nice pawn structure on the king side, put all of his pawns on leg squares, it's definitely not going to be enough to win because just these 2 weaknesses won't be too hard to defend. So that's why I chose g4, trying to fix his pawns here. A bit of a downside to this decision is that he can immediately start undermining with f3, and if I take, he wins the pawn back immediately, of course. So probably after f3 I have to play something like h5, still keep these pawns fixed on h2 and g3, but after king f2, I don't think that my winning chances are too great. Most of my hope was connected to his time pressure. So I was quite happy when he played f4, which doesn't really challenge my pawn on g4, and it essentially guarantees that all of his pawns will be on dark squares for the remainder of this endgame. So at this point I felt like it should be quite close to winning, but he still has a lot of defensive resources, I'm sure. So I spent a lot of time here trying to come up with a good plan. The natural idea of just bringing my king into the center, which I was thinking about at first. So I just get my king on f5, but I can't really make any progress bringing my king to e4, and there isn't really any chance to get it to d5 either. So he's going to bring the knight back into the game, and I was hoping that some kind of idea with h4 eventually would allow me to break through here, but eventually I figured out that it was pretty unlikely that it would work. So here, for instance, maybe even knight e5 is okay. So later I stumbled upon this idea that maybe I should just start bringing my king to d5. It'll definitely take a long time, but there isn't that much that he can do in this position to improve. My pawn on b5 is the only real weakness, but his knight is unfortunately tied down to the defense of the b4 pawn. So I played king f8. He started by centralizing his king. Now he has to prevent king d7. So of course he plays knight c5. So I have to keep going around with king d8. Unfortunately, what I was thinking at first with bishop c7 doesn't quite work, because he can just activate his knight with knight e4 and start attacking the b5 pawn. And already it doesn't work, because after king d7 he starts forking my pawns and I have nothing, I think. So that's why I have to go back with king d8. And in this position, the natural evaluation is that white should be fine, but the only problem is that I have this f5 check coming in, and then I get the d5 square for my king, and that's exactly the dream position I was hoping for. So white's only chance really is to use the fact that his king is more centralized and that his pieces are quite active, play f5. And after that, things get really complicated, and I understand why John avoided this in time pressure. It's impossible to calculate all of the consequences. I didn't quite know what was going on either. But it looks to me like it should be a draw. So here he has to go knight a6, king c4, king f5, bishop takes b4, king f6, and now at this point my key idea was, of course, if I just try to win the knight with something like bishop c3 and b4, then he'll just give it up, and this pawn on h7 won't be enough to win for sure. But I saw that I have this clever bishop d6 move, and I'm cutting off his knight again. And I think that's what caused him to avoid this line in the end. But looking at this more in depth, it seems like even though my king comes into c6, he gets some last moment counterplay with g4. And then I analyzed it for a little bit. I think that he's in time to give up the knight for the b5 pawn, and then the h pawn is the wrong color. I can't do much to win here. So I think this was white's last chance to draw the game. So he was getting really, really low on time here, about 2 minutes left, so he played knight a6 really quickly. But now I get exactly what I'm looking for. So I still don't have quite enough to finish the game just by directly attacking the d4 and b4 pawns, because these two weaknesses, he can still defend them pretty effectively. But he has a lot of other problems. He has to defend both the e4 and c4 squares. Otherwise, if my king comes in, it can quickly prove disastrous, even if I give up my e6 pawn. And the other thing is that compared to the position where my king was still stuck on f5, this idea with h5 and h4 really becomes more effective. So that's what I ended up playing. h5, king e3, he's defending against h4 for now. But of course, I have time to prepare it anyway. And there's not much he can do to stop it. So here I thought bishop f6, I'll force him to retreat to b3, and then play h4, and it's just this perfect domination. And I sort of missed that he has a clever knight a6 trick, and he's threatening knight c7 with a triple fork. And of course, if I take on d4, not only is it a fork, but he can actually just go into the pawn endgame, I think. Either knight b5 or king d4. Although here I thought maybe black might have some chances to win by getting his own pass pawn. But in any case, it's too much complication to really consider seriously when you have complete domination on the board. So I just played bishop d8, preventing this fork. I brought my king back. I have all of the time in the world. And now finally I can start finishing up, so h4. And the problem here is that there is really no good solution for white. If he takes the pawn, then bishop takes h4, and my bishop will start attacking his position from behind. So for instance, knight c5, I can just bring my king back to d5. And already he has a lot of trouble defending this pawn on b4. And eventually he'll end up losing one of his pawns, and then it's just game over. So that's why in this position he really has to let my pawn come to h3, but it's not any better. Because now I get this third weakness on the king side, which is the idea of getting bishop h4 in, and then when he takes g3, h2, there's no way to stop the pawns. So again, he was forced to play king e3 here to meet bishop h4 with king f2, but king c6 is already putting him in zigzag. Now he has to move the knight, which means that there's no knight c7 check. And once there is no knight c7 check, he has to go either knight b3 here, which allows king c4, or what he did in the game, king d3. But now I finally get bishop h4, and there is no way to stop me from promoting. So for instance, g takes h4. He ran out of time here, but even if he had enough time to get through this, he's exactly one tempo short. His knight can't get to f2 in time. So that was the end of the game. I was really happy to win from basically a position where I had less than nothing.
Well,
thank you.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for the analysis. You know, norm opportunities in tournaments don't come around too often. What are your thoughts coming into this event, and what do you see your prospective capabilities in this event being?
Well, first of all, I'm really, really grateful for this opportunity. It's an amazing tournament, and I couldn't miss it.
Good. Do you have a certain game or opponent you're looking forward to coming up later?
I don't know. I just want to continue what I've been getting so far, which is playing all right, and so far I'm undefeated. I don't know if I can make it last, but certainly I just want to continue racking up the points and playing good chess.
Daniel, you're certainly one of the players to watch. Thank you for joining me, and I'll let you go because I know you got a game in a few minutes. Let's take a look at the standings after 4 rounds in the GM Norm section. The Grandmasters, or the Gatekeepers. You might call them the Dream Crushers. One of them is at the top, Grandmaster Ashwin from India, a Webster University favorite. Can players like Daniel Gurevich earn a norm and maybe overtake Ashwin? Here are the pairings for the next 2 rounds in the Grandmaster Norm section. By the time you see this video, round 6 will be the round to watch. It will be Monday morning at 11 a.m. Steven Zirk, John Burke, 2 IMs in the GM section. Both top scorers. This will probably be the game to watch. We're almost halfway through this event, and in the International Master Norm field, I'm here with Aaron Grabinski, who today, with the white pieces, was able to defeat international master from Costa Rica, Arias Santana. Congratulations on your victory. Let's take a look at the game and show us what happened.
Sure. So I just played bishop b6, and now we see it's pretty clear the bishop's going to be on d4, everything's going to be solidified. I might be down a pawn, the pawn on d5, but it really doesn't matter because the bishop is so strong on d4, he can never dislodge it. And here I think black has to play king e7, or at least he should, because he needs to prevent bishop d7. I don't think he should allow this move because we'll see why. After bishop d6, yeah, oh yeah, that's what he played, bishop d6, and I think that's bad because after bishop d4, now king e7 is not working anymore because I just have bishop f6, and then if king e8, bishop e6, and I take d5. So the thing is, after bishop c2, obviously he's trying to return, but unfortunately I'm just going to play there. Now we see why the king should have been on e7 first, because now when the bishop gets to d7, he can't really deal with bishop c6, which will win the d5 pawn, and soon after, probably more pawns, because his bishop is probably not going to want to be stuck there forever. So, but the problem is, let's say bishop d1, bishop c6, yeah, and so in order to protect this pawn, he has to go king e6, but then I have bishop e8. And it turns out my pawn sacrifice has kind of borne a lot of fruit, because I'm winning my pawn back, but it's this pawn, which is a very nice pawn to have, because then I'm going to have a passed g pawn. And we see the pawn on d5 is an extra pawn, but it's not helping him at all. So bishop g4, take, bishop e7, bishop h7, and here I really thought I was just going to win. Like, I thought it was game over, but I completely missed. At this point, yeah, so here I thought king g3, protecting the pawn, because if g6, he has bishop takes h4. So I don't need that. King g3, bishop d8, and here, yeah, g6 was a very bad move. I completely missed bishop e6, which was rather sad. Because after bishop e6, it's not clear. I can't play g7. I don't want to take. And so I had to play bishop e8, and it worked eventually, but I don't think this should allow this. After bishop d8, instead of g6, maybe just king f4, possibly, because then I have bishop e5 check ideas, driving his king further away, and then g6, because his king will have to go this way, otherwise d5 is hanging. So this king f4 is probably just easily winning, but I made my life hard with king g6. So bishop e6, and yeah, that was annoying. So I had to play bishop e8. King e7, it's still difficult for black. I mean, it's still hard for him, but I think I was too fast with this move. Should have spent more time. Bishop c6, check, king f2, and here he makes a blunder, but he didn't have any time here. He had like maybe 30 seconds, and he played king d6, which just loses. Instead of that, maybe just bishop d6. I think he might still be able to hold a draw here, because his king is very close to the passed g pawn. My king cannot come in at all because his bishops control all of the squares. And my two bishops alone, as long as he covers all his points, I think it might just be equal. So I don't know what the engine says, but yeah, I don't see a lot for me here. It would have been annoying for sure. But anyway, fortunately, it's because the g6 was so bad, but he returned the favor. He played king d6, and then after bishop a4, he has a big problem because his king is now too far from the g pawn, which means he's going to lose his h5 pawn after bishop d1. And I'm going to take on h5, and then I'm going to be winning because the two pawns is too much. So the problem now is he can't defend the pawn with his bishop because the g pawn runs, and his king really needed to be closer. That's why I said leave the king on e7, and he should be okay. Because, for example, bishop d6, bishop a4, you can just play bishop g4. And there's no g7 because it's just king f7, right? Check, king g8, bishop g6, bishop e7, king g3, bishop d6, king f2. I think it's just a draw. My bishops can't win by themselves. His bishops control all the squares. So, yeah, if this would have happened, it would have been quite upsetting because before I played g6 back here, I knew I was winning. So I just had to play king f4. Yeah. So anyway, but that's nice. King d6, bishop a4, and now I don't think we really need any comments. I was able to win the pawn, and then once I win this pawn, these two passed pawns, and He played bishop d6, and at the same time he flagged. But I was just losing anyway. I'm just going to move the bishop, maybe here even, push the h-pawn, and it's just completely over. So, yeah.
So he flagged in that game, actually?
Yeah, he was like hesitating. He knew he had 3 seconds, and he was, going to make the move. But you know how that goes. You kind of forget how fast seconds tick away. Right. And so he played bishop d6, but at the same time he ran to zeros. So.
Okay. Well, right now you stand 2 out of the 3 necessary norms to your credit, and also you're 15 points away from the 2,400 threshold that is also required for the International Master title itself. So what do you see? You can accomplish both in this tournament, but what do you look at as, what's your outlook on this tournament?
Well, it would be nice if I accomplished both. I'm just, playing, and I don't know. I'm not really pushing too hard. I'm just kind of keep the game going, and eventually my opponents, well, clearly they end up making mistakes, it seems like, and I guess in this tournament I'm not making such critical mistakes where I lose. I clearly made a mistake in this game, but not enough for me to lose. It would have just been a draw, which would have still been bad. But yeah, so I guess it's a nice tournament. If I don't win any more games, I think I can still get the norm. I think if I draw my last, how many games we have, I think I might still get there. But even if I don't get the rating, I'm not too worried about it. It should come eventually. I'm just trying to get the norm at this point.
Neither you nor I knew that for certain the number of points you had to get. We'll have to find that out to get the norm. So that says to me, yeah, well, let's just play chess.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really worried. I don't even care how many points I need to get the norm. I'm just trying to do my best. So.
Well, I wish you the best, Aaron. Thank you for joining me. And let's take a look at the standings after 4 rounds, midway through or just about, in the International Master section. In the IM norm section, Aaron Grabinski and Justin Wang are at the top of the leaderboard. Both of these players are looking to norm, and as Grabinski said, get that extra 15 points FIDE to earn the IM title. On Sunday night, these 2 players will meet over the board, but by the time you see this video, that game will probably be finished. So on Monday morning, round 6, the game to watch will probably be Aaron Grabinski against Annie Wang, the Women's International Master. Catch all the games live, move by move, as they happen on Chess24 and USChessChamps.com. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday at 11 a.m. Central, plus Monday at 5 p.m., another round in there as well. Until next time, this is Ben Simon. So long from the Show Me stage.